Way of X #1.
Did you do the thing?
No, because you got to tell me.
Oh, sorry. This is my pick of the week.
That's Nate's pick of the week.
Oh, see, I can see it on our thing now. That'll be better.
There you go.
All right. So yeah.
Well, one more time.
Okay.
That's
Here it is.
Nate's pick of the week.
All right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Now, I read all of these books in an absolute state of delirium. So, maybe
That's kind of fitting for this book.
it is kind of fitting for this book. So this is the book that we've been waiting on for a little bit. That's initially was put forth like it was going to be Nightcrawler starting a religion, essentially. I don't remember what book it was in. I think it was maybe X-Men. But there's a conversation between Xavier and Nightcrawler about having some kind of bonding or unifying cultural aspect for the mutants. That they all really have cultural identities that are outside of being mutants, and that they don't really all share. And so maybe they need to do that. So that's sort of what the culmination of this book is.
But
It's not quite that. So the book starts out with Professor Xavier waking from a nightmare where he sees some shadowy figure, and he checks in on Nightcrawler, who is currently on a mission. Dropping in with Blink, DJ, who I'm not familiar with, Pixie, and I think it's Lola. I can't remember.
Lola, yeah. DJ, by the way, I had an idea for a mutant, and then when I saw this, I was like, well, that's already taken. We'll get more into that, but go for it.
Yeah. So we're still not exactly sure what the culmination of this book is going to be. So it's probably not quite a religion, but we obviously are getting some type of allegory to the Bible, because our first data page is from the first Florigellum Preambles and Brain Farts 1-1-5. Like it reads exactly like a header, like you would like a Bible verse or something. But basically we find out that and we've also got a hint of this too. Some of the mutants just don't have. Some of the older mutants don't have this idea that like resurrection is just sort of whatever. At one point, some of the younger members that are on this strike team with Nightcrawler are basically talking about Pixie having her first time, and it sounds a little vulgar, and then you realize they're talking about her dying for the first time, and how it's just like, well, everyone does it, like everyone's got to get through it, like you got to experience death for the first time. And Nightcrawler's just over here like, what the fuck? Yeah. And Nightcrawler has been in continuity, has been dead, and was dead for a while. And so
and he died in Hoxpox too. He literally burned to a crisp on the sun.
Yes. So he's over here, and we have an allusion to or not illusion, we have Storm saying the exact same thing in her Giant Size series, or her Giant Size issue, where she's like, it doesn't matter that you can just resurrect me. Like, this is my life. Like, this is, I don't want to lose this life. I don't want to lose this body. This is me. And during this, it was shockingly violent, but during this mission, Pixie literally runs up to a guy with a shotgun and like sticks her head in his face. What does she say?
She's like, they need to have a little bit of guilt because they're fighting a group of people that are associated with what's the name of the group? Orchid or Oryx?
Yeah, Orcus, yeah.
Orcus, and they're basically creating it like their own religion against, like a hate religion against mutants.
Exactly.
So they get caught in this church or whatever, and then that's when what you're about to say happens.
Yes, she puts her face in front of the gun, says something smart, and gets her head completely blown off.
I was completely unsettled.
Well, not only does that happen, but then all of the other mutants besides Nightcrawler start cheering.
Yeah, like
They're
giggling.
like, yeah, hell yeah, like this is exactly what we were going for.
Yeah, no.
So that was a little disturbing.
Very unsettling.
Then we cut to a scene of them back on the island. There's like a funny scene with Magneto, but basically we see a juxtaposition of our previous Magneto, the Magneto that we've had for a really long time. Whether he was a good guy or bad guy, his motivations were the same. His motivations are the protection of mutantdom, no matter what the cost.
Right.
But he was always been like pretty staunchly like, I don't care at all about making any rules or following any rules. And they sort of poke fun at him by putting up this statue that has his old, his like very original suit from like X-Men #1, 1963. It's got like the little horns on it and stuff. And he basically has like a big speech about taking things seriously and how they're all in it together, yada yada.
For Krakoa.
For Krakoa, exactly. And then he basically kind of chastises. I keep calling him Nightcrawler. What is his actual name? I've been trying to think of it this whole time and I can't think of it.
I don't remember. I feel like it starts with a V. I'll look while you talk.
Maddie, tell us what it is. Surely you know.
Yeah, you know who Nightcrawler's name is.
So while he's walking around, we see this strange woman who's kind of like all bent over and humpback and has like a cane and kind of like asks for help. And he's like, "Oh, you must be new here. Like the help center's over there," and kind of brushes her off. Seems very uncharacteristic, but Nightcrawler sort of just in his head at the moment. She will come up later on in the issue. Man, I wish I had written my synopses.
You're good.
I don't want to skip over too much of the Dr. Nemesis stuff, but I honestly, if you want to chime in, I don't remember.
So
got so bothered
yeah.
by his mushroom head hair.
Yeah, that's also extremely unsettling. So he meets up with a character called Dr. Nemesis in the book, and he basically tells Nightcrawler that he is the reason for the miracle drugs that we have in Hawk's box. The island obviously was the source, but he was able to engineer, the things that take away human disease and extend life by 5 years and all this jazz. So he's kind of the engineer of that. He's taken from Krakoa and created these things. So we get an answer from 2 years ago of like how they created these medicines, but now he's creating psychedelics for mutants, and he's doing it by growing mushrooms and plants on his head, and it's like Kurt. There it is.
Yes,
his name is Kurt.
Kurt Wagner. That's what it is.
Oh my god, Samsonite. That's from Dumb and Dumber. Anyway, Dr. Nemesis is basically working on a new drug for mutants, and I guess he's working on this way to basically have people or mutants kind of forget, pain and stuff like that. So he's working on numerous drugs, but he's doing it all in the name of science. And so it's him and Nightcrawler have an extensive talk, and basically throughout this entire book, Kurt, now I can say that, is just dealing with a lot. He's having an identity crisis essentially with himself and even in his Catholic faith. And like this book is thick. It is a heavy #1, as it should be. But there is a lot going on in this book because we haven't even gotten into the fact that Professor X is dealing with some shit that is kind of wrapped up in this book too.
Yeah.
But in general, this Nightcrawler is not happy with the way things are going on Krakoa, right? Like he doesn't like the attitude towards resurrection, like the kids, like, oh, everybody does it, right? That hurts him. And then he has a real problem with the Crucible. We've seen the Crucible before, right? Like we've seen it in X-Men. We've seen it in a couple other issues where it's a solution to somebody that's been depowered, right? And it's almost a trial by fire. But we get a completely different view of the Crucible through Nightcrawler's eyes. Like it's heavy.
Yes. So we see the character that we were just talking about, the like hunched over person, has basically like come here to, to be in the Crucible, and she was looking out for Nightcrawler specifically because she was like, I heard you, I don't remember what she says exactly. I heard you were gentle, or I heard you were compassionate. And she ends up in the Crucible with Magneto, who's trying to make I don't want to say necessarily making an example of her, but I think once he realizes Nightcrawler's there, he kind of does make an example out of her, and it's basically like stabbing her, like with his powers, like throwing blades at her the whole time, like stabbing into her and knocking her down, and like not just straight up killing her. It's pretty brutal.
Well, I mean, I think Apocalypse kind of did the same thing, where you have to fight for it.
Yeah,
you have to show some kind of grit, I guess you could say, to earn the right to get your powers back. Like, they're not just going to happen. But yeah, it's
right.
Pretty brutal.
It's still brutal, and basically Kurt's biggest problem is after it's over and he kills her and stuff. His problem is the entire arena is filled with cheering people.
Right.
And he's like, whatever this cultural shift is, whatever this like cultural identity that is being cultivated on Krakoa right now, I don't like this. Like, I don't want these aren't the people I know. These aren't like mutant. This isn't mutantdom that I know. And so we flash over to this woman being resurrected with actually a really funny panel. Like, one of her powers is like manipulation of gravitational pulls or something. Yeah. And so she basically is like causing changes in gravity that makes everybody's inner ears like thrum really, 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 really fast. And they all get super sick, and Magneto starts puking, and then they all start puking, and then Kurt's just kind of standing there. He's like, I guess I got good balance or something.
So the reason why she's got that power, so when you first get introduced to her, she's like a hunchback, and her body's like covered in like a blanket or whatever, and she's got like a cane. Well, when she's resurrected, she's like extremely long, and so her powers allow her to straighten out, and so gravity messes with her. So if she uses her powers, she's not achy, but she has no control over that whole equilibrium shit. So whenever she's around somebody, she's making people throw up, and then she ends up becoming an outcast even as she's a mutant, and it's kind of that also hits Kurt a little hard too.
Yeah. He also we also get a glimpse. This is the second time, I forgot to mention earlier, this is the second time we get a glimpse of like a weird creature in the shadows. Pixie notices it this time. And then Kurt and Professor X basically have a conversation about, a lot of the things that Kurt's having problems with in this cultural identity thing. But then he also talks about, there's someone, Professor X says there's someone that I think is causing some problems here on the island. And you know who it is? And Kurt's like, no, I don't know who it is. And Xavier's like very like beating around the bush, and it's just like, I haven't been a very good father. And then Kurt's like, oh yeah, that's all you had to say. I definitely know what you're talking about now. And then we see Kurt kind of terrorized by a dream, which is very similar to Professor X's dream in the beginning. And I am not familiar with the grave that he goes to visit. Do you know who that is?
I'm not either. I feel like it's the character we're talking about's mother.
It's not. It is not her. It's not. No.
Then it's something. It's something
I don't
that
think
he's.
Maybe it is. But I don't think
either. Well, that person has some kind of relationship. Okay, we're gonna point it out. The last character that we're dealing with, who pops up in this book, is Professor X's son, Legion. Yes. Everyone has been wondering when Legion's going to show up. Legion shows up, and we kind of skipped over this, but the beginning of the book has Professor X waking up in like a sweat because he had a nightmare that Legion was basically projecting into his mind. And Legion, I think, is another mutant that can probably upend the idea of Krakoa.
Pretty easily.
Outside of like time travelers and time seers. And so he wants to, I think he's trying to figure out a way to include Legion. I don't know if it's going to work. But Legion is not, he's obviously not happy with his father. And what I really liked about that panel at the beginning of the book was you see all of Professor X's kids, right? You see his Shi'ar daughter, which I thought was really cool. And then he's holding a picture of Legion, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? And basically Legion is tapping into Nightcrawler's brain, and it's just like, something's not right, and you know it. You know that Krakoa is tainted. I'm going to show you whether you like it or not. And so Legion shows up at the end of the book, hovering over the grave, dissolving either physically or mentally Nightcrawler's essence. And so now we're going into the many minds of Legion here very soon. Jaden asked, have we seen the show Legion? I've seen the first season. I haven't not seen the other parts of it.
I have not seen it yet. I have heard that I should watch it, though.
It's really good. But what we get in this book is we essentially finally get to figure out where the hell Legion's been. So that's one less Omega level mutant that has been crossed off the list. There's a lot of intrigue in this book.
Yeah, there's a lot of big picture stuff in this book, which honestly, like, I've really been enjoying the rabbit trails we've been going down with Excalibur and X Factor and stuff. But so a lot of those books are like telling good stories that happen to be taking place in Krakoa, and we haven't lately been getting a ton of big idea books about the overarching picture of Krakoa and the changes that are happening to mutantdom. And this first issue was exactly about that. It obviously had a really good story that we were following, but like really it was an overarching like sort of a catch up almost of the new cultural identity that is forming on Krakoa.
Yeah, and I think it could lead to some pretty big ramifications within mutantdom. I think we're gonna get, I want to say left and right sides, right? But it could definitely go down that road. I think we could see a little bit of a civil war on Krakoa if we continue down this road, which I know we're going to. Yeah,
I do want to add. I'm really excited about Legion showing up. I actually had a slight feeling that he was going to. There's a really good podcast out there. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, where they literally start with X-Men 1 and just go and explain the X-Men as they go. But they have certain issues or certain episodes in between where they talk to current writers and their current runs and stuff like that. And I think it was in like 2015 to 2016 they were covering Spurrier was writing, I think, Uncanny at the time, and he was writing a huge 12-issue arc that had to do with Legion. And they were they put on their Twitter, I think it was Jay that did, put on his Twitter that was like, hey, Spurrier is the greatest writer that's ever written Legion, so just keep that in mind when Way of X gets released. And then here we go, we've got Legion. So
promptly shows up.
I'm excited that people that I guess know literally every X-Men story ever are like, hey, Spurrier knows what he's doing with Legion.
I'm excited for it. I didn't really know what to expect of this book, and now that I've read it, I'm like, yep, this has Hoxpox like written all over it. It just feels like it's cemented in Hickman's original story, and I think with the next couple X-Men books that have been announced, I think we're really going to get into some real deep stuff. We're in the middle of the reign, right? Like it's safe to assume that there are 3 parts, right? And we're on the second part. We're about to crest, and then at some point we're going to go down. But I'm just loving these books that actually have some weight, that are answering some questions and giving us more questions, which makes me want to read the books even more. That's the whole point.
Yep.
So
no doubt.
That is again Nate's.
That's Nate's Pick of the Week.